Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians and the lying corporate media. I'm your host, Jake Duesenberg, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, and the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Join me as always, Mega Jesse. How you doing there, buddy?
Doing good, yeah. Lots of good stuff to get into. Today we'll be discussing Keith Ellison, Antifa Keith Ellison, and what he knew about the Feeding Our Future fraud. We'll be discussing what is going on within the State House as well. We will also talk about Angie Craig, coked up Angie Craig, who is running for the U.S. Senate. It was already a rumor that's been out there for a while, but she has finally confirmed and launched her campaign. We'll be discussing many details surrounding her. We will also discuss the election results of Canada that took place last night. I think President Trump is very happy with the results. And might get into some stuff about the special election going on today and the the education bill where 5 rhinos sided with the Democrats. So plenty of good stuff to get into here today. I see we already got Wings and Tucker91 in the comments. Make sure you drop a Rumble rant if you want to make sure we directly read your comment and skip right to it.
Running the dials, as always, is Mr. Deep State himself, Dawson. All right, let's get into it. Our sponsors today, Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give Warren a call at 612-419-7453. And if you're buying a home, go to the good guys at John Galt Mortgage Company. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com or check them out on Facebook and X, where they have a top-notch meme game, if I do say so myself. Also brought to you by Alpine Cabtree in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Yesterday, Keith Ellison was on, I always want to say this, Capitol Hill. That is not the truth. That's not, no one refers to Minnesota's capital that way. Do we have a term? Capitol Complex? Capitol Mall?
I don't know. The Capitol.
Okay. I always want to say Capitol Hill. I don't know why you want to do that. It's not right. So Keith Ellison's up at the Capitol, brought before the Minnesota House Fraud Committee, newly developed committee. This stems back to a audio tape. Dawson, pull up the A1. This is an audio tape that was made public by the Center American Experiment. Alpha News ran the story. It's basically, it was actually something that was in the court. It never was brought up in the court hearing against the people found guilty for defrauding taxpayers and feeding our future. By the way, in case you don't know this story, the largest COVID-era fraud was feeding our future here in Minnesota, where the federal government made payments. I think it was the Department of Agriculture made payments through the Department of Education in Minnesota, which then went to nonprofits and companies which were supposed to feed children in schools. And this thing got ripped off to tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars by these fraudsters. Great. Okay, that was a big story actually in 2022. Tim Walz, who clearly was dropped the ball on stopping the fraud, like clearly, right? But Walz is in front of the House yesterday. It's audio that came out. In this article, Ellison offers his initial thoughts on the meeting's introductory remarks. He describes the interventions with the then DHS Commissioner Jody Harpstead, stating, starting at 8:15, Harpstead left her post earlier this year. The Minnesota Star Tribune offered this headline in January 2025. And it says, Minnesota Department of Human Service Commissioner Jody Harpstead leaving post. Harpstead has led the department since 2019. She's departing as the agency faces renewed scrutiny over fraud in its programs. Ellison states on the recording that, quote, we are in the middle of the battle with the agencies now. He also at 9:07 asserts that Walz agrees with me that this piddly stupid stuff running small people out of business is terrible. At 9:22, Ellison can be heard drawing a diagram on a whiteboard. At 9:50, Ellison agrees with the proposition that there is a state agency discrimination against East African businesses. And then at 11:30, Ellison brags that just being able to say, just getting the question, just getting the inquiry from the AG is sometimes enough to make people knock it off. Okay, what is the meeting? The meeting is with a bunch of East African business owners. This goes back to December, is it December 2021? December 2021. A meeting with East African business owners. And of those, I don't know if it was known by Ellison at that time who these individuals were, which I think I could buy that ignorance, right? But many of them were then later
And he
found
definitely didn't
guilty.
know. He definitely didn't know he was being recorded.
Well, he definitely didn't know he was being
And
recorded.
I believe that audio came from Amy Bach, who was that white lady associated with Feeding Our Future. We've shown a video before where she's listed in like a commercial, and Omar Fateh, the state senator, was in there as well. But I believe that it was her audio that is what was being released here.
Now, to me, it's believable that Keith Ellison met with constituents, and it commonly occurs, and that people might be scamming him, right? Okay. That's believable to me. It's also believable why they would do it to Keith Ellison, right? Okay. So I guess the
And
question
it's also
is
believable that he would take the meeting. You know,
Very believable he'd
fact
take
that
the
he would,
meeting, right.
you know, either fall for it or be a part of it.
It's
Either way is unacceptable.
Yeah, it's believable he'd believe in the racism accusation, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Okay. All right. But the timelines here are actually kind of important because it syncs up with an investigation against these groups. Now, does he know that these people in the room necessarily represent it? And not all of them do represent some of these Feeding Our Future scam groups. I think one was what is the group, the restaurant called? Does it say in here? I'm already forgetting the name. Safari Restaurant. Yeah, it says early in the recording you hear the voice of Salim Saeed, defendant number 3, co-owner of Safari Restaurant and co-defendant with Bach in the recent trial. She was convicted in all 21 counts. Oh, Saeed, sorry, that's she. Saeed was convicted on all 21 counts he faced. Okay, now also some of these people are trying to donate to Keith Ellison, and I think the donations to Keith Ellison that were made by people involved in that have probably been given to charity at this point. Okay, so the Republican House Fraud Committee brings in Keith Ellison. Now, they don't have any legal ability to do this, but I think Keith Ellison's we were talking about this before, Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
I think Keith Ellison goes, I'm not going to get outwitted by these Republicans, right?
And
so
optically, it does not look good for him to say, I'm not going to testify.
Correct.
It makes him look like he is guilty and associated with it. And so you're right that optically it was probably his best move to say that I want to go in and testify. But you're right that the Republicans did not have the authority to make that decision, to call him to testify on their own, since the Fraud Committee doesn't have that, doesn't have the ability to compel testimony.
which goes back to the deal that the Republicans made. We were being gaslit on it. Like, this is some great deal. We get a fraud committee, and we have a super majority on the fraud committee. And then we look into it. And by the way, Mary Franson wasn't even aware of this. She tweets out about how great this is and wasn't aware that they have no subpoena power. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to make, and we made this estimate, and I think we're going to be correct on it. I hope I'm wrong, that nothing will ever come from the fraud committee, right? But this was their big day, right? You get Keith Ellison. I see in the comment section, Carol Hexum says, "Good afternoon, Patriots. Last night was our first opened Otter Tail County BPOU meeting after more than 3 years. That is something to be very happy about. Mm-hmm. Good for you guys. That is awesome. That is good work by Grassroots Patriots." All right, so, I think you're right, man. Like, Ellison's just like, it looks bad if I ignore this committee request, and I'm not going to get outwitted by these Republicans. I mean, let's be honest, right? Okay, so they're not as impressive as some of the Republicans out in the U.S. Congress, right? When they do some of these committee hearings, some people made careers out of it. Trey Gowdy, for instance, right? They were really good at. Now, there's really no follow-up out there either, right? Because there's never follow-up with these politicians. But long story short, at least they seem to be good at grilling these people. I think Ellison's like, well, I don't think that's going to happen. Fraud committee doesn't have subpoena power, says K-Wall for life. What good is that committee then? It's a great question. They're going to be looking into stuff. So anyhow, they start out with, I think, a flop. So let's go ahead and play this, Dawson. This is the A2. Apparently they got a transcript from the audio that's made available, but they didn't actually have staff member look through it. So it's an AI transcript, which there's no surety that it's accurate. Go ahead, please.
Madam Chair, I did hear that you were referring to a transcript.
I'm sorry. We can make sure you get a copy of it.
Transcript, so.
Yes, it's in the packets and it was posted, I think. It was posted online, but we can for sure get you a copy. It's just, When we heard the audio recording that was released from the defense exhibits, we just did our best on our staff team. It's unofficial, so it's more as a point of reference.
Yeah, and I haven't read it. This is the first I knew that I was going to have to address the transcript. So I'd just like you to know that.
Yeah, that's fine. And it's more addressing the audio, but we just wanted people to have what was a attempt at making a transcript. But it's unofficial. And
Unofficial.
And we did post it online to the committee website, and we did reference in our letter of invitation to you that we would be addressing the audio recording.
Madam Chair, I'll just...
Vice Chair, or Lead Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess my one concern I have is just that if it is unofficial, we won't know if there are questions based on it. We won't know if they're based on anything accurate, right? If it's unofficial, we won't know that it's correct. So how will that work?
Well, we'll get to it when we get to that part of the discussion, but it is unofficial, and we will be relying on the audio. The audio.
Okay, all right.
that's being
You get the
played.
point. Now, we shit on Republicans all the time, and we do this for a reason. Like, at some point, can't you just do some common sense work? Like, why give a softball to the Democrats? I think people get this misnomer about, us sometimes. It's like, oh, you're always going after Republicans. It's like, yeah, because it's very obvious the Democrats are bad, right? Like, there's no question on that one. They're bad. But why do you guys also have to be bad? I wish it was as simple as Republicans good, Democrats bad, and then we could move forward, and then maybe we could be cheering their praises. But instead, they start out a committee hearing with like some unofficial transcript that they reference and pass out. Just basically like, what good is that? And you hear the lawyer come out and is it David Pinto? That sounds right. David Pinto. I think it's David Pinto.
I think
Representative
that's
Pinto.
right.
Whatever. All right.
But you're right. The fact is that if you fall for Keith Ellison, you got what's coming to you because that's what you believe at that point. But the Republicans are the problem because like you're saying that if the opposition against Keith Ellison is fake, then conservatives are left out in the wind without anybody actually truly representing them. And that's exactly what's going on in this state. We got Republicans who are all talk, no action.
Okay, so the crux of this thing, and they just hand over, like, I mean, I guess that's how the committee works, but, I mean, you have Mr. Filibuster himself, Keith Ellison, chatting, talking. It goes on for like an hour. I mean, you don't even get into the heart of a lot of the stuff until like an hour. So to play you clips, it's very difficult. What I did is I picked out the two clips I think that are worthwhile and leave the speculation about did he know, what did he know? I mean, I don't know if it's safe to accuse Keith Ellison of conspiring with these people, but was he aware of the scam that was being conducted and then he still met with these people? That's pretty problematic.
And then also he could have just been looking the other way.
Or that's problematic.
You assume that he might have known something was going on but never looked into the details because he didn't want the details, which is a major problem. This guy is supposed to be the lead law enforcement enforcer of our state.
Legal officer,
sure.
That's what he says.
And if you're not going to be implementing the law, if you're going to be giving special treatment and favors to people that are donating to your campaign or people that are meeting with you, that's a major problem.
Okay, let's go ahead and go to the A3, Dawson. This is actually getting to the heart of the matter of this audio. Go ahead, play it.
But I do want to just make sure we're accurate on what the contempt was about. So please proceed in responding to Representative Hudson.
Well, let me just say, Madam Chair, Representative Hudson is suggesting somehow that I should have known that these fraudsters who were lying, not just to me, but to courts, but to the media, to the agency, that I somehow should have known. As I noted, and I said on several occasions, I do not handle every single file personally. I have a staff of 430 people, and at that time, maybe around 380, I'm not sure what the exact number is, that help me do these cases every day. These lawyers and legal workers who work on this stuff, they knew the file very well, but we are one law firm. And so, no, I don't know every single thing happened on every single file. What I do know is that Our team is defend state agencies all the time, that they do a good job. And I was well aware that there was a dispute between vendors and the agency. I do know that a court had found against my client. That was what had happened up to that point. I still believed in the position my clients were taking, but I wasn't ignoring the fact that there was at least somebody, including the press, including courts, and including the agency, who had been lied to by these fraudsters. So when I meet with these people on this day, no, I gotta be, I mean, it's just not how it works to believe that I know every single thing that happened on every single file in my office. What I knew then is that there was an ongoing dispute between vendors and the state. What I knew then is that a court had found the client in contempt. What I knew then is that there had been this dispute playing out in the press, but still, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. What did I do for these people? Nothing. I investigated after the conversation, and then what did we do? We cooperated to help get these people found accountable as they eventually were.
Okay, so it does sound like he was probably in a bad position. Of course, he didn't know he was being recorded. So he's in a meeting.
One excuse that I won't accept from him is that how am I supposed to know? Well, you are the guy that is, you and your office is supposed to be investigating things when you think that there's anything sketchy going on. The media and
he was being investigated by the FBI though at that point, I believe.
Right. Yeah. I would just figure that the Attorney General's office should have some investigative authority, even if the FBI is.
But
looking
they
into
are
something.
actually they couldn't be an impartial investigator here, right? This is the tricky part of it because their client is the Minnesota Department of Education, who's being sued by these scammers, right? Because they're not getting the payments, right? I'm going somewhere with this, by the way, because in many regards, this is the problem with big government, and this is why you shouldn't be funding big government. Hello, Republicans, right? Because this is what's always going to happen, right? So obviously he's... Keith Ellison's got too big of a staff to even know what's going on. There's 400 some attorneys. Maybe we should decrease the staff in the Attorney General's office. Clearly, they got enough time to go after, pro-gun people, right? They got plenty of resources to do that. Or go after, lawful good businesses like Fleet Farm in our state.
Yeah, and they still got James Osted working there, who was the guy who tried to become the Itasca County attorney,
right?
Who failed. So there's all kinds of radical leftists that are occupying the. It's not as if it's just 400 lawyers who are doing their best to uphold Minnesota and protect the taxpayer. Of course not. These are all leftists.
I think what becomes the most problematic, and this is the last clip we're going to do, is Ellison does state in the recording that we are in the middle of the battle with the agencies now. Well, the agencies that he's supposedly representing. And so actually Isaac Schultz pushes back on him a little bit to answer that question. What does he mean by, being in a battle with these agencies? Let's go ahead and play that, Dawson.
Attorney General Ellison. So looking at the picture of this whole quote that we listened to a moment ago, it's one thing to be concerned with the general tone, and you've addressed a lot of just the nature of the fact that you were, in this instance, meeting with constituents. And at the same time, I'm struck by this statement where, and again, we did play it earlier, but it's, and so this has my attention. I'm extremely frustrated by it. But we are in a battle, we are in the middle of a battle with the agencies. So Attorney General Ellison, can you share for the committee, what do you mean by a battle with the agencies?
Madam Chair.
Sorry, Attorney General Ellison.
Again, we're talking about 3.5 years ago. We're talking about a conversation with constituents who I didn't know who I was talking to. I was just talking to some constituents who had been complaining that they felt that they had not been treated fairly by state agencies. This is not the first time I've heard people say,
okay, Dawson, do me a favor.
Let's
fast forward this until after Schultz re-asked the question, because he actually doesn't answer the question here. So just hit the right button. There you go.
Over this correct. And I'm looking at this point in time, you have been representing MDE for over a year by this point in time. And so when I'm looking at this, in this statement here that goes on and talks about discriminatory stuff, that at least through the way that this is written, and the way that your words were here, it was this attempt at saying that discriminatory actions were taking place within agencies. Who in this instance, in your quote here, who are you fighting?
Madam Chair.
Attorney General Ellison.
As you know, the agencies in general are who I'm hearing complaints about. I'm trying to solve problems for people who are telling me that they're having problems. Which agency? I don't know. I mean, I don't mention the. I don't believe that we even talked about the specific agency. What I'm saying to you, Representative, is that in all the meetings that I would go to, and still go to, you'll hear people say, "I'm frustrated with how this agency is dealing with me." Sometimes these people may have a legitimate concern about how things are going. Sometimes they lie, and it really is the fault of the person who's telling me that it's not their fault. I can't control what people say to me, but I do try to listen. I do try to demonstrate some sense of, I'm going to try to help you. And sometimes those people are lying. So what we're really talking about here is a clip 3.5 years ago that is before the convictions, before the indictments, before the search warrants, where some people are telling me that they feel they weren't being treated fairly, and I'm saying, yeah, that's too bad. Let's see what's going on there. And then what do?
And
Nothing.
Then, okay, and that's good. And basically says we're in a battle with these agencies, you know. Now, once again, he doesn't know he's being recorded, and maybe that's the story. I don't know. What do you guys think at home? I mean, to me, it's like that's the key area there, is that he's empathizing with these people. He doesn't know they're fraudsters, or does he know he's fraudsters? Is there more to the story? Or are they barking up the wrong tree at this point, right? Mm-hmm. Like, is the real tree that they should be barking up is how could the government possibly manage all these programs? It's ripe with fraud to the tunes of billions of dollars. We only know the hundreds of millions. There's way more than that. And maybe, just maybe, the problem is we have too much government, and maybe we should be shrinking it. Mm-hmm. And Keith Ellison, which I don't know if he's really as culpable here as Governor Walz, who's clearly incapable of managing this behemoth state government that the Republicans want to fund. Mm-hmm. Right? They're growing government. Well, they're keeping government at the same rate, relatively the same level as it grew under the Democrat trifecta. They're cementing in $14 billion this new government.
And, you know, one argument that the Republicans are kind of pushing is that it's almost wrong for Keith Ellison to be at battle with the state agencies, which is pretty strange, because I could imagine plenty of situations where a conservative, good faith attorney general would be having these battles in good faith with a state agency. So, you know, that argument doesn't necessarily carry any weight, but the fact that Keith Ellison keeps calling these people constituents, you know, any Minnesotan would be a constituent of Keith Ellison because it's a statewide office. You know, it is interesting the fact that he had that meeting, that it was recorded, that he said what he said, but I don't know if the Republicans got what they wanted to out of that fraud committee hearing. Yeah,
what do you got here on the A5? You got Amy Bach's lawyer here.
Yeah. Dawson, let's go ahead and pull up the A5. So this is a video I was checking out before, and Amy Bach, like I said, she was the white lady that was involved with this, and her attorney talks about some things.
To specify she's white.
But in looking up the images, there was exactly one white woman who was
I know.
I know.
That's why I'm saying she's a white lady. Because
it does happen to be a bunch of East Africans that caused this big scam. I mean, it's like, geez, can we just say they don't? There's a segment of our population that hasn't assimilated very well in Minnesota. Big shocker on that one.
Yeah. But yeah, this is a pretty interesting thing. Her lawyer goes into some of the things here. So, go ahead and play it.
Minnesota Republicans are demanding answers from the state's top prosecutor. Their questions come after newly obtained audio of a meeting between Keith Ellison and some business owners who were later convicted in the Feeding Our Future fraud. In that recorded meeting, the Attorney General can be heard pledging to help any way he could. WCCO's Adam Duxter breaks it all down and explains what the AG's office is saying.
As the convicted ringleader of the nation's largest pandemic fraud case waits to be sentenced in federal court, Amy Bach's attorney is still working.
She had a habit of just recording for records.
Kenneth Udobach says one recording in particular.
It would show that the Attorney General's office was aware of the contentious relationship between Feeding the Future, Ms. Bach, and MDE.
Of a December 2021 meeting with Attorney General Keith Ellison is drawing new scrutiny when several people now convicted in the Feeding Our Future scandal came to him saying they were part of a small business organization and asked for help.
I'm very concerned about it. I don't run the agencies, but let me just finish by saying, but often the agencies call on my lawyers to represent them. When you tell me, hey, this is a problem, I call somebody and say, what's going on?
Weeks later, FBI agents raided Feeding Our Future's office and the investigation went public. Ellison's office contends he wasn't briefed by the FBI about the extent of their probe. And in a statement, Ellison's office says it's a shame that fraudsters tried to exploit his good faith, but say nothing came from the meeting.
There are a lot of questions that we have to answer.
Republican representatives not so sure.
We need a lot more information about what's happened. You know, in that meeting, he's sending emails to people in his staff, or saying he's sending emails to people in his staff. We need to understand what was really happening behind the scenes.
Udobach says what he's most frustrated with are the AG's claims that he spent years holding Feeding Our Future defendants accountable. He says this audio,
Let's just go fight these people.
proves otherwise.
Wouldn't it be easier to just say, hey, I thought these guys were upright citizens. I didn't know. I thought they were doing good work. I didn't know. That would be the truth.
Adam Duxter, WCCO News.
I mean, they had a chance. They had a chance to get to the bottom of it. Did they get to the bottom of it, Jesse? I don't think so.
No.
I mean, or maybe that is the bottom of it, and there's nothing there. I just don't think, like, it's a slow news cycle, guys. And we got a show on Tuesday. And Keith Ellison is no bueno. No bueno. Is he guilty of colluding with these, convicted felons in the Feeding Our Future scandal? It sounds like they really played him. They really did go against his, or take advantage of his good faith. And Keith Ellison certainly took the meeting, and he's a willing audience, but my God, I mean, I don't know. But yeah, I'm open. I'm open. Maybe there's more to the story.
There is one line from the audio that's out there. I believe it comes from Ellison, where he says money is freedom. So there are some things in there where it sounds as if he's rooting these people on. It's not as if he's being nonpartisan and just saying, well, let me look at the facts. He's obviously taking a little bit of a side by having the meeting with these people in the first place. But the Republicans are all talk, no action when it comes to Keith Ellison. Dawson, please pull up the A6, because the Republicans, and especially Rhino Jim Nash, is pushing a bill to increase Antifa Keith Ellison's Attorney General budget. Go ahead, scroll down just a little bit there, Dawson, and people can see the numbers for themselves. So let me see here.
State government finance bill. It goes.
Yeah, in 2023, the state government spending bill only had Democrat authors and passed along party lines. In the 2023 bill, the 2025 budget for this year is $43,825,000. As you can see in the paragraph above it, the bill for 2026 and 2027, the one that they are debating right now, that Jim Nash is pushing right now alongside the Democrats, increases the funding for Keith Ellison's office to $46,919,000 for next year and $47,398,000 for the year after. So this means a $3 million increase from the 2025 to 2026 numbers, and a $3.5 million increase when you compare the 2025 numbers to the 2027 numbers. So the Republicans want to talk big about Keith Ellison. If they think he is a fraudster, if they think he is causing all of these problems, and if he cannot be trusted with the law, if he is not going to be a defender of the Constitution, why would Republicans then decide to give him an increase? It doesn't make any sense. It shows that these people are phonies. They want to be all talk. They want to pretend like they're going after Keith Ellison, but meanwhile, they're going to increase his budget.
Yeah, and the other thing is he's clearly got like way too much money because he's spending his time going against like pro-gun people.
Right.
And the fleet farms and the other good companies that they're going after. And let's just be honest about
men and women's sports. That's what the Republicans are funding.
Right.
Men and women's sports. They are funding the lawsuits against President Trump for Keith Ellison. That's what this does.
Yeah. All right. This next segment's brought to you by Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give Warren a call at 612-419-7453. No shocker, this morning we learned that Angie Craig is going to run for U.S. Senate.
And I have a way that we can tie the Ellison thing directly to Angie Craig here. If we could pull up the A7 very quickly. We've already talked about this before, but just to remind everybody that Walter Hudson really shouldn't have anything to complain about when it comes to Keith Ellison, because Keith Ellison is doing his bidding. You know, Walter Hudson was the one who was pushing the bill to make AI memes illegal in the state of Minnesota. He wants to be able to send you to prison if you make fun of politicians. And Keith Ellison is the one who is fighting fighting Elon Musk to be able to do that. This is something that is an ongoing debate. The AI discussion is a major one. Let's go ahead and pull up the A8, Dawson, because the United States House of Representatives passed a bill yesterday, pretty similar to the one that we're seeing in Minnesota, that makes it illegal for people to spread around some certain AI memes and deepfakes and whatnot. As you can see there, go ahead and scroll down just a little bit. I want the section that talks about adults. Let's see. Involving adults, yeah. Can you zoom in a little bit there? I can't read it too well.
Barely. This website's weird.
Yeah.
Shall be unlawful for any person in interstate or foreign commerce to use an interactive computer service to knowingly publish an intimate visual depiction of an unidentifiable individual who is not a minor. Is this basically the
I think it's largely just the porn thing, you know. Yeah. But what's interesting about it, the vote came down to 409-2. Thomas Massey and one other Republican were the only ones who voted against it. It's one of those things that the politicians are not going to be able to regulate AI, and especially they're not going to be able to regulate deepfakes and whatnot. All they're going to do is be causing more problems. It's a free speech thing, and once it starts, it's never going to stop. And one of the people who was defending her vote on the AI bill was Angie Craig. Go ahead and pull the A9 up there, Dawson. We can see on X, Angie Craig says, "I just voted to ban the publication of non-consensual images and deepfakes on the internet. Keeping our community safe means that keeping them safe everywhere, and that includes online." So Angie Craig is defending this bill, and she's just another anti-freedom tyrant, fake moderate. But yeah, she has announced a run for the United States Senate, which people have been talking about for a while, but she's obviously finally jumped into the race.
You know, I just noticed in her bio, and I forgot about this. It says she's mother of 4 boys. Was she married previously?
I don't know what it is, right? Because she's a lesbian. She's married to a woman. So yeah. I don't know where these kids came from.
I'm looking it up right now. In 2020, Craig moved to Prior Lake, Minnesota after living in Eagan, Minnesota for nearly 10 years. She and her wife, Cheryl Green, were married in 2008 and have 4 sons who were teenagers during their first run for Congress in 2016. So does that mean maybe it's... Maybe it's her wife's previous.
Maybe.
And then it says Craig is a Lutheran. Yeah, probably. ELCA. Yeah, interesting. I'm kind of curious. I don't know much about that story. Mm-hmm. Well, Angie Craig basically supposedly looks like a moderate, right?
That's what they say.
Is she just a moderate? Well, let's actually go to the B2 real quick. Or sorry, the B1, Dawson. Just so you see... We reported this. We were the only ones to report this, by the way. Beta News slept on that one. So Tom Emmer made a move last summer. It was actually the day Trump was shot, because we were going to do a special episode, and then all of a sudden it didn't become an important story anymore. But Tom Emmer made a move where he essentially offered a position with the Trump organization to the endorsed Congressional District 2 candidate, Taylor Rahm. He took it and withdrew from the campaign so that Tom Emmer's chosen guy, Joe Tayrab, could be the candidate. And then Joe Tayrab went into the November election against Angie Craig and scrolled down here and got his butt handed to him.
He had the worst performance of any Republican against Angie Craig.
Yeah, 13-point margin. You see that? 13-point margin. And this is all orchestrated by Tom Emmer. And it's not just speculation. They had literally a joint financing committee. So it is Tom Emmer's candidate. They made this big move to get him to be the candidate against Angie Craig instead of the CD2 endorsed candidate, Taylor Rahm. And they got clobbered, 13 points. So that was the 2024 election. Let's scroll down to 2022, where Kistner ran against him. Keep going down. So Tyler Kistner, who I kind of like. I think Tyler Kistner's a good dude. Only lost by a margin of 5.3. All right. So relatively close, you know. Also, Paula Overby passed away during that election cycle. That's an interesting story. So third-party candidate passed away. All right, scroll down to the 2020 election. Angie Craig beats Tyler Kistner by a very slim margin, right? What's that, under 3 points? Okay, almost like 2 points, right? In that one, Adam Weeks got 5.8. Also passed, look, it says unofficially withdrew. Jeez. Passed away during the campaign. Isn't that interesting? Like how 2 years in a row, the third-party candidate passes away.
What are you implying?
Unknown,
Jake?
by the way. It's not like they're. What's that?
What are you implying, Jake?
What are the chances of that one? But anyhow, it happened. I don't know if I'm implying anything. It's interesting. And then go back to 2018. This is when she first won, and she beat Jason Lewis, who was the incumbent, and beat him by a margin of 4 points. Everyone knows that 2018 was not a good year for Republicans. So this is her election history, and this is also why in the Congressional District 2 is probably the best opportunity for a pickup by Republicans in the state of Minnesota. Hence why she's viewed very positively as a statewide candidate, because she does well in kind of like a reddish area. Okay. All right. So you got the launch video here. I haven't even watched this yet.
Yeah.
Jesse.
Yeah. Go ahead and pull up the B2 there, Dawson. We can check out Angie Craig's launch video for her U.S. Senate campaign.
Oh God.
The classic.
I'm Angie Craig. I've had to fight my whole life, and damn if we don't have a fight on our hands right now. There's chaos and corruption coming out of Washington, crashing down on all of us every day. An out-of-control, unelected billionaire trying to take over our government and burn it to the ground. A president trampling our rights and freedoms as he profits for personal gain. And a cowardly Republican Party rolling over and letting it all happen. It's time to fight back. We've got to break through the chaos and take them head on. I know what it's like to be knocked down and counted out, to be the underdog. I grew up in a mobile home park, raised by a single mom. Nobody gave us much of a chance. I worked my way through college, started my career as a newspaper reporter, then helped lead a major Minnesota manufacturing company. My wife Cheryl and I fought like hell to be parents of our 4 wonderful boys. As some people, even a state government, tried to stop us. No one gave me much of a chance to win a Republican congressional seat either. Well, they keep underestimating us, and we keep winning. We're proud Minnesotans, a state of fierce independence, freedom, and community. People willing to take on the powerful and fight for what's right. It's why I'm running for U.S. Senate, to listen, to fight for all of Minnesota, and to win.
We are not going to just sit here and let them take over our country like this. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to feed my family. We have to fight back.
Because we all know Washington's not listening to you, and that's got to change.
Trump lied to us. These tariffs are killing us.
I'm very, very worried about what's going to happen to our Social Security. Trump allowed us to go in and to tear things apart.
And the wealthies are doing just fine, and working class folks like us are struggling.
When you took the drug companies on to cap the price of insulin, it changed my life, and it changed so many other people's lives.
I'm Angie Craig, and I'm hitting the road to listen to you, to earn the honor to represent you and this great state, to be your voice. Because it's time the middle class started calling the shots again. And that starts right here, right now. Now, on to Hibbing.
Yeah, I love at the beginning of the video when she's talking about how there's a problem in Washington with corruption. You know, kind of like the corruption of covering up for the fact that you had a dementia president in the White House, which Angie Craig was on full board with. You know, she was a total supporter of that. Even when her friend, Dean Phillips, was running in the race, what did Angie Craig do? She endorsed Joe Biden. It wasn't until the debate when Trump exposed how out of it that Joe Biden was that all of a sudden Angie Craig had a change of heart and said, oh, we need to change the candidate. The only reason she was doing that was because they realized that they were going to lose. They were going to lose in a landslide. And that's the only time that the Democrats are willing to be honest. So when she's talking about going up against corruption, we know that she is a total phony and a fraud.
I think that I caught her in a pretty big lie here.
What's that? Yeah?
She claims to be a lesbian, but she's not driving a Subaru. She's driving a Jeep.
Jeeps and Ford pickup trucks are also in the typical car choices of lesbians. But it isn't a Subaru. I did notice that.
And obviously, that's an ad directed towards Democrat voters. There's no doubt about it. With all of the talk about Trump and Elon Musk and this and that, when really what Trump and Elon Musk are doing is covering or exposing the fraud and making sure the American people can see what the government is actually up to. That's where she sees the problem. She thinks it's corrupt to expose the corruption. Let's go ahead and pull up the B3. This is something that proves how much of a fake moderate she actually is. She claims to be this moderate that, I'm bipartisan and whatnot. She is full of it. Go ahead and scroll down just a little bit. I want to actually scroll up a little bit. There's something that, there we go. Yeah, right up top. It was different on my phone, but the constitutional scores. Her lifetime constitutional score within the United States House of Representatives is 6%. Does that sound like a moderate? Someone who votes 6% of the time with the Constitution of the United States? That is bogus. And as you can see there, 6%, 8%, 3%, 7%. So her lifetime score is 6%. And somehow she calls herself a moderate. If you compare her voting record with Ilhan Omar, there's almost no difference. The only time that Angie Craig is voting differently, it's not because they disagree. It's because optically, it's better for Angie Craig to vote the opposite way.
How do you score whether a vote is in line with the Constitution or not? That seems pretty in-depth for a percentage to give you.
It'd be pretty simple to do.
If a bill is unconstitutional, you mark it as unconstitutional.
Yeah, if it's not something that's covered in Article 1, Section 8, it'd be unconstitutional.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't know that scorecard very well. So
right, I don't either. So, and that's the thing. I'd assume that we're even to the right of them. So if we were the ones who were putting together the scorecard, I bet Angie Craig would be at a 2% instead of a 6%.
Well, I mean,
so
who
it's all
knows?
Biased, right?
I mean, wasn't the first one the Juneteenth? Isn't that what it said on there? Juneteenth holiday, federal holiday?
It was highlighting some different votes there. You know, if you pull that back up, I know the Build Back Better was listed on there, which of course Angie Craig voted for, which was
so
totally
that is Juneteenth
the Green New
federal
Deal,
holiday.
World Economic
Is there a problem
Forum.
with the Juneteenth federal holiday?
Well, I'm sure it describes in there what their issue would be with it.
Okay, yeah.
We didn't look at this before.
However, slavery was not legally abolished until the ratification of the 13th Amendment. The House passed. We have assigned pluses to. You know what? I just don't care.
It's in that
all I know
second
about that is
paragraph there.
That's a legitimate holiday when slaves were freed. Like if that's what we're celebrating, seems to me to be a very legitimate holiday. It's more than Labor Day. Like we celebrate Labor Day in the United States. I think. The founding of our country, great holiday, 4th of July, right? How about the freeing of slaves? But maybe I don't know something about that story. I really haven't looked into it.
Right, and who knows what else was in the bill? It's always one of those things that the title sounds great, but what's in the bill? That's always what counts. So,
that's a very good point.
And, another thing that's going on with Angie right now, let's go ahead and pull up the B4. This is a story on KSTP. But Tom Emmer and the other Republicans within the Minnesota delegation have filed an ethics complaint against Angie Craig. So what's going on is all of the Republicans in Minnesota are refusing to hold town halls, which I can understand why. It's become a form of liberal grandstanding rather than actually listening and hearing from your constituents. But that said, Angie Craig is taking advantage of that opportunity by saying if the Republicans won't hold town halls, I'm going to hold town halls within those districts. Of course, this was also to prop up her Senate campaign, which has now been announced today. But the Republicans have filed an ethics complaint against her, not simply because she is holding these town halls, but because they believe that she is using taxpayer dollars that she is only supposed to be able to use when campaigning in her own district or, for her own constituent services, not campaign related, but constituent services within her own district. They're saying because she is holding these outside of the district, that it causes some kind of ethical problem. That said, maybe this would actually help Angie Craig within a Democrat primary, because the Democrats will say, hey, if the Republicans are going after her, she must be doing something right. And the Democrats love these town halls right now, not because they're all about transparency and whatnot. The real reason they're for it is because, like I said, it gives the liberals a chance to pontificate and grandstand against Republican congressmen.
Okay, we got an expert weighing in the post show. So if you're a premium subscriber, we will review a video of Angie Craig that looks like she might have been under the influence of some drugs at one point. We're going to bring in an expert to decipher that. But I want to talk to you.
It appears that way to me, too.
Yeah, it does. It's very interesting. So if you're a premium subscriber, you'll see it in the post show. If you're not a premium subscriber, go to truthhurtsnews.com, click on support us, or on the top of Rumble, hit join. Join? Is join? Yeah. I want to talk quickly about the open Congressional District 2. So once again, this is like the swing district in Minnesota, right? Republicans have Congressional District 1, 6, 7, and 8. And Democrats have 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the only one that I would say of those that's really contestable is 2. That's how most political observers look at it. And so it's a chance for Republicans to actually have the majority delegation in Minnesota. Otherwise, we're just split. So it's going to attract a lot of people. First of all, it is interesting that Tina Smith resigns from the U.S. Senate, and we have 3 women on the Democrat side that get in. Mm-hmm. It's almost as if maybe they don't want a man.
Yeah, well, I think
they play
Tina
the gender
Smith
politics
is,
all the time.
If I had to guess, I bet Tina Smith is going to eventually endorse Angie Craig.
I would imagine
I was
so.
listening to a conversation the two of them had before. They were both chatting it up, talking about how great their friendship was. No, and we both beat John Lewis and this and that. So there's a relationship there, and so I could see Tina Smith going that direction rather than going the Flanagan direction.
Yeah, so Peggy Flanagan, Melissa Franzen, and then now Angie Craig. Lopez Franzen, and then not Franzen.
Yeah.
On the Republican side, and we've had 2 of them, Royce White on the show and Adam Schwarzy on the show.
And Marissa Simonetti. She's been on the show before.
I keep forgetting. We've had all 3.
She is running for the U.S. Senate.
Do we need to bring her back there, Dawson?
I would appreciate it if we did, yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll bring Marissa Simonetti, who's running for Senate as well. Is she as a Republican? Is she running as a Republican?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I guess there's all genders represented. There's speculation Julia Coleman will get in for the race. There's speculation that Michelle Tafoya will get in the race. Okay. When there's the governor race, and there's some people that want to go after Tim Walz. Kendall Qualls will run for governor. Okay, that's going to happen. Scott Jensen possibly run for governor again. I don't know why. It seems like a dumb idea. I think it's dumb for Kendall Qualls. I don't really understand the appeal of Kendall Qualls, to be honest with you.
Is Scott Jensen still around?
Yeah,
I haven't heard anything about him.
Yeah, he's got he keeps his people like active. The last thing we heard from him was he endorsed Gary Heinzman for Minnesota Senate.
Yeah, in the primary.
Right. So that's the other, and Brad Kohler, who we've had on the show, is a governor candidate, and Philip Parrish is a gubernatorial candidate. So there's going to be plenty of names. It's so early on. Usually you'll start seeing this stuff start around the summertime, and then probably into the fall of next year. So that's when you'll start seeing people make that jump.
Mm-hmm. With there's a guy named Jeff Johnson that's running as well.
Yeah, not
Jeff Johnson, right? Another Jeff Johnson, and he is going straight to primary, so he's not even competing for the endorsement. So he's going to have to be someone that people keep an eye out for.
With that being said, that would mean if Angie Craig goes all in, which I assume she's going to go all in, the Democrats don't usually abide by their endorsement, so she'll probably go into the primary. In Minnesota, you can only file for one office, so that would prohibit her from re-upping in the congressional race, meaning it's an open seat. So on the Democrat side, they're talking about Matt Little right now, Matt Klein.
Mm-hmm.
Who else are they talking about running for Democrat side?
Yeah,
those are the two big names that I can think of. On the Republican side, Eric Pratt, Rhino.
Yeah.
Joe Tarab, Tom Emmer's puppet that literally lost by 13-point margin. And then Tyler Kistner. Okay, those are the names that are being popped up right now. So that's actually interesting, right? You lose that incumbency power, maybe CD2's won. Now, here's the other question. It typically looks like the party in power doesn't do well in the first midterm. It doesn't have to be that way, but it's been that way ever since 2002. And it's usually that way because the people in power don't do what they're supposed to do, and the voters basically hold them accountable on that, right? Mm-hmm. And so right now, with the way that the Democrats are getting energized and with polling numbers, not looking very good for Republicans' chance in congressional races in 2026. It looks like the Democrats, which it's just a slim margin of majority anyhow as it stands, are looking to win. And
the party not in power is almost always going to be more motivated to show up for the midterm.
Right.
Because the party in power feels relaxed. We got Trump in there. So people feel as if they don't need to vote.
Well, I don't even look at that. I think they get punished by voters when they don't do what they said they're going to do and or cause pain or whatever it is.
No, I don't think so. It's just who comes out. It's just who comes out to vote. You know, I think it's very little to do with any of that.
It's 100% who comes out to vote. I don't refute that one bit.
Right.
But why do they come out? I think I'm not totally saying you're wrong on that.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying too.
So that's what it looks like right now. We are, 18 months, something like that, from that election? Well, it was only a month ago where in Canada, it looked like the Conservatives are going to win. What's a Canadian Conservative? Hey, like Democrat light, right?
Yeah.
But Pierre was looking very good. This last segment's brought to you by John Galt Mortgage Company. If you're looking to buy a home, give the good guys at John Galt Mortgage a chance at financing the home. Go to johngaltmortgage.com. Oh my God. I mean, last night, Canada just doubled down on stupidity.
Yeah.
I mean, the Conservatives were looking at an enormous victory. I should have pulled up the polling numbers.
I haven't.
From a month ago?
Well, the thing that's predicting who's going to win kind of deal.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about last night.
You're saying
how far back does it go?
It goes back till
Show it.
2024 or whatever.
Yeah, predict it. I'm guessing is what it is.
It's 338 Canada. So I have a few friends in Canada who were talking to me about this because of my streaming stuff, and they were like, "You need to look at this chart if you work in politics because it's pretty interesting."
Yeah, it's very interesting. Where is it? There you go. Look at that.
This is just 2025. We're doing 2024 to 2025.
Yeah, there you go. And this is in many regards, it's a Trudeau effect. When does it make that turn?
That turn, it begins on February 16th.
There you go. Look at that.
And then
that's how recent this thing turned.
Yeah.
To the point where not only does the Liberal Party get the majority back, and they've got now Mark Carney, who was acting. He is the prime minister, right? But he just got reelected. He'll remain the head of the Liberal Party. Pierre didn't even win a seat.
Right. Yeah. No, really crazy results because both the Conservatives and Liberals picked up seats, but to your point that the Liberals picked up more. And what's interesting is, we could give credit
to the
Liberals.
Not a two-party system. That's why he means they picked up seats. So the third party's kind of died down.
So K-Wall for Life, $10 Rumble Rant says, "Fear is the passion of slaves." Patrick Henry. That is a very good quote. But so, the conservative, the Liberals here, what was interesting on that is, you say that they had this big comeback. Well, the biggest reason for that was Trudeau. Trudeau was extremely unpopular. People didn't like him at all. It all comes down to personality to a certain extent, and people were more tolerant of Mark Carney's personality rather than the pompous and arrogant attitude of Fidel Castro's son. So the Conservatives and Liberals both picked up seats. Liberals won a minority government. Third parties like the French Nationalist Party called the Bloc and the New Democratic Party and the Greens all lost seats, but They all still have at least some seats within the parliament there. Conservatives gained about 8% in this election compared to what they did in the previous one. Liberals increased their vote by 11%. And if we could pull up, let me see here. Which one is it here? Dawson, if you could pull up the C6. This is going to be a way that we can see some of the results that came out of this thing. And as Jake had suggested, go ahead and scroll down a little bit. Pierre had lost his seat. Keep scrolling down. We want to look for the part where you can search. Yep, search for a riding. Click on that, and I want you to look up Carleton, C-A-R-L-E-T. Yep, the first one there. So this is the district of Pierre Poilievre. Go ahead and scroll down. As you can see, all the results, I think that was that 265 of 266.
Yep.
So not completely counted, but it's the lead is insurmountable at this point. Interestingly, there was about 91 candidates or something just running against Pierre Poilievre. This is a conservative district that actually became even more conservative and more rural following the redistricting, so he really shouldn't have lost this seat. What it shows me is that his national ambition is probably what got him out of this thing. It's that probably his constituents were realizing that he was pursuing a national goal rather than representing their own individual interests, and the fact that they elected a liberal in that conservative area is pretty big. If we could go back up to that, there's a few other of the leaders that I want to go through. If we could go ahead and go B-U-R-N, in the first one there. So this is the leader of the New Democratic Party, Jagmeet Singh, who is potentially more arrogant and more annoying than Justin Trudeau. He's basically the Sikh version of Justin Trudeau, except he's more free Palestine, and he is just he's as far left as it gets, but not even truly, because he's all about himself. He's all about his own ambition. But the fact that he got third place in his own district there shows the change that's coming. The New Democratic Party had something like 25 seats. Now they're down to 7.
I gotta stop. That is the most interesting roster of people in the race. I mean, what a diverse district. The four candidates are Chang, Yang, Yan, Singh, and Fartbridge.
Yup. Yup. Yep. So, and that's an area that has been, Jagmeet Singh has been in there for he's won 3 elections there or something. So the fact that he got taken out and that he has been the leader of the New Democratic Party is massive. So both him and Pierre Poilievre lost their seats despite being the leader of their party. And then another one we can look up. Let's see here. Dawson, look up Outremont. O-U-T-R-E. Yep, right there. And go ahead and scroll down a little bit more right there. So that Jonathan right there, he was one of the 2 leaders of the Greens. And the fact that he got last place within his own district is pretty telling that, the Liberals won that area. There was a lot of voters that were deciding to vote for Liberals rather than voting for one of these third parties because they're so angry about Trump. And so we see that 3 leaders of political parties within Canada lost their elections. And really, if we also want to count Maxime Bernier, who was just on Tucker Carlson, and Patrick Bet-David, if we could pull that up, Dawson, back on the screen there, the results page, and look up B-E-A-U-C-E. Yep, right there. Go ahead and click that. Scroll down a little bit. Maxime Bernier, he was a former Conservative member of Parliament. He was almost the leader of the Conservative Party before Andrew Scheer beat him. After that point, he decided these people are too globalist. They want mass immigration. They're not a true conservative party, and he wants actual free trade. He was one of the only candidates that was running in this in the election, leading the People's Party of Canada, that was saying, how about we don't have a trade war with Trump? I would rather negotiate a deal so that we can have free trade and eliminate tariffs on both ends. He was the only candidate saying that. There's no wonder that Pierre lost. It's because he was going against the conservative base on something like that. He should have been taking the approach that Maxime Bernier was playing. And then let's also look at Mark Carney's area, which is N-E-P-E-A-N. So despite being the prime minister, he still has to win within his own area too. And Mark Carney, as you can see, he won easily. So There was no flipping on that one. But it's interesting to note that that shows how all of the leaders performed within their districts, and he was the only one that really pulled it out. Of course, the LeBlanc party, which is this French nationalist party, he had also won his seat. They lost a couple of seats in total. Honestly, they didn't have a terrible performance last night. The real failures were the New Democratic Party, because a lot of their voters had switched over to becoming liberal.
All right, so let's talk about who they just elected. Mark Carney. Let's go to the C1. Dawson, this is the celebration of his historic election victory. There you go.
I'm going to keep it muted just for
That is the
copyright.
guy they... Oh, God, I love it when these weirdos just show how weird they are.
This is normal in Canada. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I know, yeah. It is very normal in Canada. That's right.
Actually looks kind of like a fun guy. Looks like my dad.
But all kidding aside, let's go to C2. So who is Mark Carney? Well, he's a total globalist. This is him being appointed back in January 2016 to the Board of Trustees at World Economic Forum. It writes in here, as of 22 January 2016, the members of the Board of Trustees of the World Economic Forum are Klaus Schwab, chairman of the Board of Trustees. It goes on to list a bunch of people, and I think it's about 6 or 7 down. It says Mark Carney, chairman, Financial Stability Board, governor of the Bank of England. So he's on the controlling aspect of the World Economic Forum, total globalist. But don't just take his association with the WEF as who he is. Let's listen to the guy himself. Let's go to C3. This is his view. I mean, he is the climate change guy, and this is an important thing for Canada, which is a huge exporter of oil and natural gas. In fact, we consume a lot of the oil that comes out of the fields in Canada. Did it not come up? Did that leak not work?
It sent me to a search result page.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah.
Shoot.
What are our odds of
let's
finding
go. Why don't we go to the C4? Try that one. I'll pretend like I know how to do a link. I think this is the one that talks about zero emissions. Yeah, go ahead and play that.
About ESG labels or sustainable labels, and it again is one of the reasons we're having this ruthless, relentless focus on net zero, because in the end, look, we can't stabilize the climate unless we get to net zero, and it's as simple. These are hard numbers. Your emissions are either A or B. They're going up or down, and if they're going down, are they going down consistent with the science? We anchor it in the science, the same science the UN and others use for the 1.5 degree objectives.
Okay, now let's go. I just updated the C3. I found that link there, Dawson. So we should be able to be good, because this one's even, I think, a little bit more troubling. But yes, the zero emission standard, which we've also seen Tim Walz and a bunch of these other guys try to achieve, which is definitely going to hurt an economy, especially one that's an exporter of oil.
Right.
All right, let's go ahead and play the C3.
You demanded action, and now it's time for the financial sector to deliver. To reach net zero, every country, every company, every bank, every investor, every pension fund around the world will need to make some big changes. In the run-up to COP26 in Glasgow, we have an enormous opportunity to bring climate change into the heart of every financial decision. And our plan will manage the risks from climate change while helping to seize the opportunities from a newer, greener economy. The UK has been at the forefront of innovation for centuries, brimming with ingenuity and a can-do spirit. It also houses the world's largest financial system, and by bringing them together, we can deliver the net zero world that you've demanded and that our future generations deserve.
Okay, so there you go. This is the guy, and this is the big scam here, is, it's carbon emissions is leading to the end of the planet, right? Which I think a lot of people are waking up to that one. I think I mentioned last week, Joe Rogan's even kind of been red-pilled on the issue. Someday Dawson will get there. But the real scam here is it's a way to have authoritarianism inside the whole economic system. But even if you were to say in particular the energy system, that's problematic enough. But he's just talking about the whole global banking system, on pension funds, which we see this. But this is now the leader of Canada, right? I mean, he is Trudeau on steroids in that regard.
Yeah, exactly. He was able to differentiate himself from Trudeau barely just by being personality different, but you know,
Right.
and also with the carbon tax, you know, that was his big thing by saying, "See, I'm a moderate. I'm easing up on the carbon tax." But of course, it's still going to, you know, it's still going to destroy Canada. They're still going to be targeting energy, and they're still going to be pushing all of this green woke stuff that is not going to work in the frozen tundras of Canada there. And yeah, you know, it's funny that they are pushing this climate change stuff, especially for Canada. If we could pull up the C5, there's something that Trump had put on Truth Social the day of the election. He says, "Good luck to the great people of Canada. Elect the man that has the strength and wisdom to cut your taxes in half, increase your military power for free to the highest level in the world, have your car, steel, aluminum, lumber, energy, and other businesses quadruple in size with zero tariffs or taxes. If Canada becomes the cherished 51st state of the United States of America, no more artificially drawn lines from many years ago. Look how beautiful this landmass would be. Free access with no border. All positives with no negatives. It was meant to be. America can no longer subsidize Canada with the hundreds of billions of dollars a year that we have been spending in the past. It makes no sense unless Canada is a state."
That's
so,
one hell of a troll there.
And so, you know, of course,
because there's no candidate. That's not a candidate that's on the ballot, right?
I think he's saying.
Well,
vote
he's
for
saying
me.
himself. He's
Yeah,
saying,
yeah. I mean,
he's
like,
saying
it's
that
not a
you
candidate
need
on
to make him the president. And, you know, so of course, you know, they were freaking out. They wanted to fight, you know, they wanted to choose someone, whoever was going to be the best option for them. As you can tell with that post right there, and from previous posts from Trump, that he was not a fan of Pierre Poilievre. He thought that Pierre was just another phony who was not going to be, you know, and he was trying to fight him on the trade war rather than being willing to negotiate. So Mark Carney, I'm sure he's probably already gotten a call from Trump saying, "How's it going, Governor?" And I'm sure that they're going to, you know, but I think that's partially why he won, because this whole election became about Trump. I was watching the debate, you know, almost the entire thing was about Trump. They're sitting there arguing about how they're going to be able to stand up to Trump, how they're going to be able to handle him. And, you know, I think Trump got exactly what he wanted by seeing Pierre go down. And now Pierre has to step down as leader. I don't think he has done so yet. And technically, he could be given a seat from someone else that did actually win in the parliament. But I think that's such a bad look. What he needs to do is fess up and say, "I didn't win my own area. That's proof enough that I shouldn't be the leader at this point." It's going to be interesting to see who they hand it off to now. I think that Andrew Scheer, who I had mentioned before, who had beaten Maxime Bernier, is probably the guy that is maybe the easiest choice because he is still in the parliament. So we'll just have to see what happens on that. And since it's a minority government, the Liberals are going to have to work with the new Democratic Party, which is one of the reasons why the election was going on in the first place, because the Liberals were forced to go to the left in order to have enough votes to be able to pass anything. Now they're in the same exact position with the new Democratic Party. But at least it won't be Jagmeet Singh that's leading the new Democratic Party. Hopefully it's someone that is a little more honest. But the election that went on in Canada, it was very, very interesting.
Here's the problem. I hope Trump is just teasing because we don't want Canada, although I don't have a problem with Canada. It's a country of 40 million people, which would be the single largest state if it became that. And that would be the biggest electoral college vote in our country that just elected that doofus. And then
But they'll ingratiate themselves into our culture. You know, it's going to take a while.
Well, not the French Canadians.
They're very hesitant. They'll come around. We'll get them.
French Canadians?
We'll get them.
The ones in Quebec? I'm not quite sure that's going to happen.
Once you're an American, I think that, you know, who goes back on that? You know, almost nobody. Once you're an American, you got it as good as it can get. And I see a couple comments here. K-Wall for Life says, nothing quite says I'm a globalist like being a Goldman Sachs banker, and Billy 22 pushes that as well, that not just a globalist but a central bank globalist. Tucker has an interesting idea. He says Trump's CIA should run psyops against the Canadian public to sow discontent among provinces such as Alberta or Quebec to secede. And I think that you're giving Trump some very fine ideas right there. I hope that,
Alberta, but Quebec would be like down with this kind of stuff, right? Like, isn't that the most liberal province?
I think that's what he's saying, to secede from Canada. You know, there's a lot of French nationals who want to secede from Canada.
Yeah.
So I got a question, because this has been coming up in my brain. Whenever I was growing up, my dad would always tell me that Canada and the U.S. were like basically the closest allies on the planet when it came to government and when it came to war stuff and junk like that. Wasn't Canada essentially just the 51st state originally?
No,
like,
never.
I'm not talking historically. I'm talking like in recent memory. Canada and America pretty freaking tight, or they were.
I'm sure that's how the rest of the world kind of sees them, because the only reason they're able to get away with being so weak is because we're their neighbor, and
right.
They wouldn't be able to have such a tiny military, and they wouldn't be able to they wouldn't be who they are without us.
We have a tighter relationship in many regards with like England and Australia, New Zealand. There's something. Well, actually,
and Canada is tied to the crown. It's one of those things within the Canadian Constitution. It mandates that the king, or whoever the royalty is at the time, it used to be the queen, now it's the king, would be able to prevent an election from going on. So I mean, the king has the authority to shut down elections within Canada, and although that power hasn't been used, it's a power that exists, and it just shows that they're stuck listening to tyrants in England rather than running their own government.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're part of our security apparatus, the Five Eyes. So they get intelligence sharing with the rest of the ones I just named. I mean, we're maybe intertwined as much with them as any other country, economically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
But I would always think that England, in some regards, I mean, not an original founding of this country, but certainly nowadays, I would think so. That's a good question.
My main question then would be, that seemed to be what was confusing everybody with the tariffs that I don't think caused that big shift in the election, but was definitely a factor. Why?
Oh, it is the factor, right? Let's be honest.
I am not 100% sure. I saw in that chart there was a marker for something happening, like when that dip was going on. I can bring it back.
Yeah,
up.
I mean the two issues were economy and Trump, which are kind of connected because of the tariffs and whatnot.
We have to realize Trudeau was a problem, and we brought this up with Joe Biden. On this show, we predicted the Democrats would toss Joe Biden to the side.
Well, and Trump is the reason Trudeau is gone too.
Correct.
Trudeau was the one who went to Mar-a-Lago, and Trump made a fool out of him by saying
but
that
the enemies of Trudeau were growing and growing.
Right.
And so this is what they do. They will get rid of the people that are problematic and insert their new candidate. Now, in America, the Democrats made a mistake. They got rid of Joe Biden and they put Kamala Harris.
Right.
I mean, maybe a slight improvement. They made this switch and it worked, right?
Yeah.
They'll do this. They'll toss these guys off board. And Trudeau was somewhat royalty because of who his dad was. But he was hated. He wasn't loved like his dad.
This was the only reason I was hesitant to say it was the tariffs that caused this switch, just because the Trudeau resigning and then a little bit, and then Carney became the LPC leader like in the middle of this. So
yeah, they had to. Well, Trudeau. Okay, actually, Trudeau didn't resign then. Trudeau announces he resigns, I believe, and it wasn't until Carney was appointed that Trudeau really stepped down. That was interesting because it was like Trudeau announces that, and it was like a month later we're actually switched over. So. But both things made an impact, and then Trump antagonized them, and then we all saw it in the hockey game, and like they're booing the American or the national anthem.
Well, and Trump almost was leaning, was almost suggesting that he wanted Mark Carney. He wanted the liberal, probably because he is thinking strategically of who he would rather negotiate with, who he thinks is stronger, and if he thinks that Pierre would be a tougher negotiator than Mark Carney, of course, he's going to take whoever the weaker negotiator
What are the
is.
odds that the conservative leader would be a harder negotiating?
It sounded like he would be. When it came to the trade war, he was definitely pushing it more. He was definitely not going in a Trump lane. He was going in his own lane that, we're Canada first. We're So he was pushing his own kind of spin on it by saying that Trump, he was trashing Trump constantly.
That seems to be what's happening though. Like you were saying Poilievre or whatever his name is was Canada first. I think that's like kind of the thing that they've all been able to unite behind, right? Is like Canada first. That's why.
Yeah, right. And Mark Carney's, I think his slogan is a stronger Canada or something like that. So yeah, I mean, the whole thing, they want to frame it like, this is a unifying thing. We're all fighting against Trump because Maxime Bernier was the only one that was really putting up any kind of fight. And then when you see his final totals, I don't even know if his party got 1%, but of course they weren't running a ton of candidates, and he didn't do well in his own district, which he was talking as if he was going to be able to win it when he was on Tucker Carlson and whatnot. He got like 5% compared to the 60% of the conservatives there. So, but of course people are always going to be pretty stuck within the party that they always vote for. It's tough to get people to split from it. Right. But yeah, no, I think that it's tough to say who would have actually been a tougher negotiator. Maybe Trump and Pierre Poilievre could have actually hashed it out and gotten along. But yeah, I have no idea. I think that, Trump, for whatever reason, thought the Carney was maybe weaker.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
All right, let's go to the post show. For our premium subscribers, we got someone special joining us, an expert on if Angie Craig was under the influence of a certain white powder in this congressional press conference.
You'll never guess who the guest is.
If you're not a premium subscriber, go to truthhurtsnews.com, click on support us on the top. Otherwise, go to Rumble and click on join us. Thank you to our wonderful sponsors, Warren Westlow, Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give my good friend Warren a call at 612-419-7453. I don't know a lot of numbers by heart, but Warren's one of them. And you should know that number too, right? Also go to johngaltmortgage.com if you're looking to buy a home. Check them out on Facebook and X. Also brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Please go to our support, our advertisers here. I mean, like, we couldn't do the show without them. So,
and also one other thing for people to watch tonight, there is a special election going on in Senate District 6. We're going to see Rhino Carrie Heintzman. Of course, she's going to be able to win. She's up against a radical leftist lesbian, Denise Slipey. So that's, of course, the Democrats and the media are trying to prop up this Denise. But just like the 40B race, this one is already decided before it's even happened. So we're going to see Carrie Heintzman get in there. And actually, I think that's a positive thing because I'd always like to see more Republicans within the Senate. It gives them another vote. It gives them some more leverage. And I hope that Carrie Heintzman actually votes like a conservative, unlike her husband.
It'll be awkward if she's a much better vote than Josh. All right, maybe she'll go door knock Morton's house as well.
Yeah. Well, she was the one driving, wasn't she?
Was she?
I think so.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
She knows the way there then.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back on Thursday. Don't have the announcement for our guest yet. Also, you can catch me on Action for Liberty's new podcast tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Go to their Facebook or YouTube page. We got something big. Mortensen wants to talk to me about, share some information we know. And then we'll be back Thursday. For everyone else, stay tuned to the post show in 1 minute. Bye-bye.